friends, welcome back to my channel. We're here today for day 10 of list challenges for Caribathon. So that means day 11, no, day 10. Day 10 means that we're up to the penultimate challenge, which we're going through the Caribathon hashtag. Today we're up to letter O, and we're going to use O to mean overseas. So when you're growing up in the Caribbean, you hear people talk about going overseas, and overseas just means exactly what it sounds like. Overseas. You're leaving the Caribbean country and going over the Caribbean Sea to some other destination. So overseas could mean traveling from Jamaica to Trinidad, but most likely when people talk about someone who's living overseas, or they might say abroad, or they're going to foreign, usually that means the person is going to the United States or going to Canada or going to England. Those are the three most popular overseas destinations. So today, for our overseas part of the challenge, we are going to look at some authors who live overseas. So these are authors who were born in a Caribbean country and have lived overseas for some time, maybe are still living overseas. And so a lot of their audience, their reading audience, may know them from their other life. So here are some of those authors. And today's challenge, you get a point if you've read anything by these authors. So first up is Dionne Brand. She's a poet and a novelist. And I got this book of poetry for Christmas. I think it was around December. One of my book club buddies, Sharon, sent me this gift to read with my daughter. And so Earth Magic by Dionne Brand is part of my collection. Thank you so much again, Sharon. We have enjoyed reading it. And Dionne Brand grew up in Trinidad, I think, and she now lives in Canada. So she's overseas in Canada. So give yourself a point if you've read anything by Dionne Brand for this challenge. Carol Phillips. We read this book, Crossing the River, in the Run Right Reads book club last month. Carol Phillips is from St. Kitts? I think it's St. Kitts. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it real fast. About the author. It doesn't say. I think he's from St. Kitts. Yeah, was born in St. Kitts, West Indies, and went with his family to England that same year. He was born in 1958. So went overseas really early. So give yourself a point if you've read anything by Carol Phillips, including Crossing the River or any of his other novels. Blue by Emily Prophet came my way in December. It was one of my last reads at the end of December. Like, it was a book that I put on my TBR for 2022 and then eventually ended up reading after I made my TBR. So I read this in 2021. But Emily Prophet is from Haiti, and she's written a lot in her native Haitian Creole or French. I'm not sure her original writing, but I think in French. This book was translated to English by Tina Culver, and it's, I think, her first book that has been translated to English. So if you read French, you may have read or may be familiar with Emily Prophet, but if you are not a French reader or speaker, you may only have heard about this one because I raved about it. I think it was in my list of favorite books from last year. So Blue by Emily Prophet, you get a point if you've read this one or anything else by this author. Another overseas resident, Lauren Blackwood, is, her bio says she's Jamaican American living in the United States. And I think that means she was born in Jamaica. Correct me if I get that wrong. I haven't found that exclusively or explicitly stated on her website. But in any case, Lauren Blackwood is Jamaican, Jamaican living overseas. And Within These Wicked Walls, I think, is her debut novel. And I read this and really enjoyed it. It's a little bit of Wuthering Heights kind of retelling, but with a little bit of a YA fantasy spin set in Ethiopia. And yeah, I liked it. I liked it. You could go through my channel and see earlier videos where I discussed this book. So yeah, give yourself a point if you've read anything or heard about Lauren Blackwood. Elizabeth Nunez was born in Trinidad And she came to the United States, I think, when she was about 19 years old. And she's been writing most of her life. She is a university professor, and I think she's a creative writing teacher. So Now Lila Knows is a recent publication. I just got this from the publishers, and when I got this book, I didn't even know that Elizabeth Nunez was a Trinidadian, and did not know that this was a Caribbean book. So I'm new to hearing about Elizabeth Nunez, but maybe you've read something from her. So give yourself a point if you've read any of her books. I don't know why I am not able to speak. Cardella Forbes, almost the same story. Cardella Forbes is from Jamaica, but she's been living and writing in the United States for a long time. And so A Tall History of Sugar was gifted to me by Akashic Books sometime last year. And I hadn't read anything by Cardella Forbes before. I hadn't heard about her before. So give yourself a point if you've read something by Cardella Forbes, which means that you'd be ahead of the game in that one, or at least ahead of me in the game. Jean Reese, a Caribbean native. So Jean Reese was a Creole woman, I think is what you would have called her. She was of English, meaning white ethnicity, but she was born and raised in the Caribbean because her parents, I guess, were colonizers. I don't know. Is that politically incorrect? In any case, Jean Reese's novel White Sargasso Sea is a retelling of, it's not so much a retelling, it's a reimagining of a part of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. So we're following the story of the Mad Woman in the Attic, and we're learning a little bit of about her origins, at least the way Jean Reese imagined them. So I highly recommend this book. If you're a fan of the Bronte book, definitely want to read this book as an accompaniment, maybe an explanation, maybe a little bit to get a different perspective of that book. But in any case, you could read this book by itself, and it's highly, highly enjoyable. So yeah, Jean Reese is a Caribbean who lived overseas. V.S. Naipaul is from Trinidad. You may know him from Trinidad. You may know his books that feature Trinidadian life, like Miguel Street and House Where Mr. Biz Was. But V.S. Naipaul went to England in his youth, and a lot of his writing also covers his travels across other parts of the world. So this book, which won the Booker Prize, In a Free State, talks about immigration and talks about people moving from one place to another and having experiences that are unique to immigrants. And in this book, it doesn't center on the West Indian or Caribbean immigrant. It talks about immigration more as a general subject. So, like this book, because of that, it gives you a place to connect the Caribbean experience to experiences in the wider world. So love that. So yeah, V.S. Naipaul, give yourself a point if you've read anything by him. A.B. Boy, American Street is great. It's a YA novel that shows a little bit of a Haitian teenager, someone actually who was born in the United States, was raised in the Caribbean, comes back to her home in the United States, but feels like a little bit of an outsider. And that's a story that a lot of people can relate to, children who have moved because of their parents' whims and fancies and are not sure how they connect with a place that everybody calls their home. So I love that. Didn't love everything about this book, but I definitely really enjoy Ibiza Boy's writing. And so I want to read more things from her. So if you've read this, if you've read Pride, or anything else that Ibiza Boy has published, and you get a point. And finally, Olive Sr., a Jamaican woman who has lived in Canada probably for a long time. I'm not sure. But we know her as living overseas, Olive Sr. So give yourself a point if you've read anything by Olive Sr. Her writing is really accessible. She writes a lot of short stories. So you could check out some of Olive Sr.'s writing without committing to an entire novel. So yeah, give yourself a point if you've read Olive Sr.'s Arrival of the Snake Woman or The Pain Tree or any of her stories or any of her books. Give yourself a point. So yeah, those were about 10-ish authors. So you can get a point. For those of you who haven't been doing so well in these challenges, you know who you are. I'm not going to call names, but yeah. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what your score is. I hope you did better today. And if you didn't, there's still one more challenge coming, and I hope you'll join me for it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. And if you think that there's someone that would enjoy taking these challenges, go ahead and share this video. And until we come back for another video, I hope Caribathon is going great for you. And yeah, until we come back, happy reading. Bye.